Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's a kind of a key question that kind of people with PTSD would want to know. You know, what's going to help me best and things. So one point that I just want to clarify is your characterization of there being sort of three effective treatments for, or three areas of sort of trauma focused therapies. I think the way that the NICE guidelines in England lay it out is essentially that there are two effective treatments. There's EMDR, eye movement desensitization and processing, and then there's trauma focused CBT. Under the umbrella of trauma focused CBT, there are four named treatments, one of which is narrative exposure therapy, also prolonged exposure and cognitive processing therapy, which are kind of key treatments which are offered in the States, where they kind of were developed, and then cognitive therapy for PTSD, which is probably the most commonly offered treatment in England, certainly, and has been kind of developed and sort of disseminated in England and the UK kind of particularly. I think adherents and the originators of narrative exposure therapy might argue whether it's best characterized as a trauma-focused CBT or not. I think it shares many common features, and that's why it's gathered together under the banner of trauma-focused CBT in the NICE guidelines. But you know, there are nuances between the different types of trauma-focused CBT. I think across all of these treatments, there are some common features. Yeah, and so actually, I think the similarities between the treatments are as striking or as important as any differences of implementation and things. And I think that at heart, there are two key things which all of these treatments are doing. There are more similarities, but two really key things. One of which is actually helping people realize that these are memories from the past. These are ghosts from the past, and that what we need to try and help people do is rather than avoid the memories, it's to engage with the memory in some way, whether that be in talking about it or having the images in mind or writing about it. There's engagement with the memory rather than avoidance of the memory. And then the other thing that's common across all of these kind of treatments is thinking about meaning. Yeah, is thinking about how the meanings that people have about themselves, about others, about the world, about the future have either been confirmed or shattered by these experiences, and how we can help people address those kinds of meanings. And there are a range of different types of tools or techniques which can be used for that, and different of those kind of brands of therapy emphasize typically one or more tools more than the others. But at heart, I think all of the treatments are helping people engage with the memory, and they're working on these meanings. Yeah, and so that's really what's shared. Now, the crucial thing, but which one for me then? Yeah, which one should I get? Which one for my partner, for my child? And certainly for children, I think the evidence is pretty kind of robustly clear that actually you want to offer trauma-focused CBT rather than EMDR. The evidence is much stronger. If a child of mine had PTSD, I would want them to be offered trauma-focused CBT rather than EMDR first. It's not that EMDR won't be effective, but there's just less convincing evidence for it. Yeah. In terms of adults, the NICE guidelines in England suggest that EMDR is as effective as CBT, except related for combat-related PTSD. This is based on just a very small number of studies, and I think this personally, I think PTSD is PTSD in terms of what we're working with, and breaking it down by trauma type in that way is not necessarily helpful. And certainly other guidelines in other parts of the world, the US, Australia, the sort of international guidelines provide equal backing and equal weight for EMDR and trauma-focused CBTs. Yeah, there may be adherents of EMDR or adherents of one or other brand of trauma-focused CBT who say, "Oh yes, but mine works quicker, or mine works better, or mine works more effectively for this problem or that problem." Yeah, if you hear people say that, and if you hear your own clinicians say that, take it with a pinch of salt. Yeah, there is not good evidence for this at this current time. Yeah, none of them are quicker, more effective, should be used in one particular trauma or another. Yeah. So how do we make treatment decisions? How do we make treatment decisions? I think one of the things we ought to do is provide choice where possible. Yeah. So to provide choice for people around EMDR, trauma-focused CBT, the different types of trauma-focused CBT, perhaps. And if somebody is coming to, sorry, let me just.
Doug agrees.
Hello, dog. So if somebody's coming to you and says, I really want EMDR, yeah, rather than trauma-focused CBT, and you said, look, both these are effective, we can offer them both in our service. If they say, no, I've heard about EMDR, or I saw it on this TV show, or whatever, or the other way around, I really heard about kind of CBT or kind of cognitive processing therapy, I heard it on this podcast or whatever, then let's go with what the person's choice is, because we're more likely to have a beneficial effect because they're getting their choice. Yeah. So that's the only thing that I think would really kind of guide things at this moment in time, and really be skeptical of people saying, oh yes, this one works quicker or this one works more effectively in this area. It's just not the case. The one nuance of this that I'll kind of put in here is that is narrative exposure therapy as a treatment was originally developed specifically actually for working with people who had multiple traumatic experiences, and for working with people who are in low and middle income countries, potentially even treatment being offered by kind of sort of non-professional kind of sort of therapists, so sort of lay therapists, and to be offered almost like as close to often people who are kind of refugees seeking asylum, and as close to the kind of their sort of home as possible. And it's effective there. So for refugees and asylum seekers, there's some argument, a reasonable argument, that narrative exposure therapy and the kind of counterpart treatment for children, a sort of a kid net, might be the most effective treatments to kind of to offer for people kind of with those kind of sort of histories. However, again, the trials kind of haven't been kind of fully done, and one of the problems with the outcome literature generally is that there aren't long enough follow-ups. Yeah, that people, just because somebody's better after right at the end of treatment, how does that last 6 months' time, 1 year's time, 5 years' time? And actually, all of us in this field need to be gathering that follow-up data more than has been the case, but of course that's reliant on funding and things like that. So, but that's a whole other issue. So sorry for the diversion there, but the kind of the crucial thing is that yes, there are effective treatments. Yes, you can be helped. Yes, you can be helped even if the trauma or traumas happened a long time ago. And broadly speaking, there's nothing to choose between the sort of the trauma focused therapies, because there are common components to all of them.